Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am on my way to my parents' house. If you don't know what's up with that, just check this out. You can check out the link in the description. Anyway, I wanted to talk today because I was noticing this morning that Whole Mars was talking about how good 11.4.4 is, and I think I'm actually still on 11.4.3. In fact, actually, I'm going to check that right now. Yeah, I'm still on 11.4.3, not exactly sure why, but there is an 11.4.6 that's come out, and he was saying he doesn't even have that yet, and yet it's so good, it's so freakishly good. And by the by, I'm, full self-driving is driving the car as I'm on my way on yet another 600-mile road trip that is going to be no big deal, and the car is changing lanes and doing all that kind of stuff on its own. So anyway, in response to that, Elon Musk said just driving the version 12 alpha around, and it is mind-blowing. So that, for a little bit of context here, there's a whole bunch of videos that I've done, and I'll try to link those in the description or something like that, or put them up here, whatever. Anyway, there's been a lot of indication, and from Elon Musk included, and sorry, I forgot we're back in South Carolina, so the roads are terrible again. There we go, a little bit better right now. Anyway, there's a lot of indication from a lot of people that version 12 of the software is a new version of the software. It's what would be termed end-to-end rather than piecemeal, and it doesn't have very much or any version 1.0 sort of hard coding in there. It's entirely neural networks. My understanding is of it from watching Ashok and Phil's talks that again are linked, that you can watch if you want to, is that this version of the software, and they haven't completely admitted this, so sort of waiting for AI Day 3 to show up to get a little more of an indication of exactly what's going on with this. But that basically the end-to-endness means that it's being trained, it's sort of generating its own data, using real-world data, all of that kind of stuff. Think of it as like a game. I think the best way to analogize this is to think about the AlphaGo that DeepMind created a few years back, which was they had a previous version where the software was they had a previous version where the software was learning against human games. It was reading human games, figuring out what was going on, and then learning how to play like a human being. And this is, people always talk about why not just do the end-to-end thing at first. End-to-end is very difficult for a number of reasons. I'll explain a little bit more in a second. But one of those is just understanding what the right architecture is for the neural network to have. Just like, what does it actually need in order to learn to have the right thing to be able to train on. So it's kind of a necessary step for anything that's complicated. And within that, of course, so that it was able to learn to beat, and I think it was Lee Sedol, I think that's the guy's name, who was the Go champion at the time from South Korea, and it beat him. And the really amazing part is not that, which was amazing enough, but that they developed the next version of this where it played itself. So it had two of these agents that had this training as their basis, and I think actually maybe one of them didn't even have any information. It just basically started from a clean slate, but it was based on the architecture that they knew should work from learning this stuff. Anyway, played itself, and here comes, sorry, gigantic mess. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I record videos in South Carolina. It's just not even worth it. Anyway, played itself millions of times, and became so much better than human Go players that humans don't even understand what it's doing anymore. It's a very, very complicated game. I understand the rules. The rules are simple, but the play of the game is extremely difficult. And humans, it's kind of an art more than a science anyway. And the deal is that this thing just played itself over and over again and became so much better than a human that humans don't even understand how good it is anymore. So of course, a game, even a complicated game, is not as difficult as what's going on right now. But what's happening is that the indication is that we've got a end-to-end neural network stack that is training on its own, I would guess. So it's utilized the information that we have given it. It's utilizing all of this data from doing the full self-driving as part of its sort of touchstone to reality, but it's also able to generate its own data as well. So you can give it a prior, you can tell it this is what's happened up to now, and then what's going to happen next, and it fills that in, and it can check that versus reality versus other things. So basically it's not exactly the same as Go, because Go is much simpler. It's got rules and you play the game and you see who wins and you just play and play and play. In this case, you have to have some sort of touchstone of reality to see what's going on, but the beauty of it is that we are providing all this data. And of course, Tesla has produced or is looking to get to 100 exaflops of compute power by the end of 2024, all of which goes into being able to train something this beastly. It's very difficult to do end-to-end networks that are this complicated. Nobody's ever tried anything like this that's this complicated before. But anyway, that it's very, very complex. But if you can make that work, the odds are that you can actually train something that won't be just as good as a human, but will be substantially better than a human being. Now, we're not going to get there tomorrow. It's going to take a while to get to that point. But that's exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about. It's going to be able to level up to such a degree that it could potentially become far better than a human. Now, of course, you then have to put that into a little portable computer that's in the cars, and most cars are still driving hardware 3. Obviously, some are driving hardware 4 now, but most are still driving hardware 3. But anyway, within those parameters, Elon is convinced that it's going to be up to, even with hardware 3, up to 10 times better than a human driver, and I assume that means an average human driver with just hardware 3, and that it could be, I think, I may be misremembering this, but like another potentially 5x better than that with hardware 4 as well. So anyway, the deal here is that we've got Elon talking about driving around with the alpha version of this new version of the neural network software that apparently is doing something on the order of training itself, and that version is mind-blowing. That's exactly what he said. That's the words that he used, and I'll probably just put that in the thumbnail so you can see it since I'm recording this on the road. Anyway, so that's the kind of thing he's talking about. What does that mean? When are we going to get it? Well, right now 11.4.6 is rolling out. Clearly that is not version 12. And I believe that there is supposedly an 11.420 that's supposed to be coming out that I think is getting rid of all of the hard coding and stuff. So that may be another version after 11.4.6. So we may be looking at a while. Alpha builds, you know, if you're into software development, you know what it is. If you don't, we're driving beta software, which is generally released to the public because it's up to a certain quality level. It's not perfect by any means yet, but there's a quality level to it. Alpha builds are very sketchy. So, you know, when you're driving an alpha build, you definitely want to be working inside the company. You don't want to be releasing that into the public and stuff. And I just noticed I've got like these God rays here. It's pretty cool. Anyway, but the alpha build is not ready for public consumption at this point, but of course Elon gets to play with all the cool toys. So he is driving this thing, and if this is the end-to-end sort of self-training, doesn't need labeling, all of that kind of stuff network that I'm suspecting it is, we could be looking at, I don't know, you know, it's getting to be a long ways between the internal builds and the external builds. So we could easily be looking at close to the end of the year before we get that. My sort of thought on the topic is that what they might do is try to make a push to release that sometime around the time that there is an AI Day 3. I have heard from little birdies, it's not birdies anymore, little X's, little X flappy things, I don't know. Anyway, I've heard from some people that there is a good likelihood that there will be an AI Day 3. There's also, of course, Optimus, and there is an indication that sometime in November is when, in fact, it was stated that sometime in November is when Optimus is going to have fully internally built actuators, which are the motors that run it. And if that's the case, Scott Walter thinks that they're going to delay until November to do AI Day 3 so that they can show off this new version of Optimus. Very, very possible. And it also is possible that that would be just around the right time that version 12 of the software might be ready to go public to at least the OG beta testers. So if that's the case, we could be looking at somewhere around there. But at this point, we got like August, September, October, you know, we could be looking at 3 to 4 months before we see something like that. So it is not necessarily that far away from happening. And when that does happen, in my mind at least, this is the last major step change to getting to the version, the architecture of the software that will be able to get to full self-driving, where you will be able to like take both hands off the wheel permanently, not touch anything, not have to pay attention to the road. That would be lovely for me today. I mean, after the amount of stress that I've had and all this stuff, I'm exhausted, and so it's very difficult. One of the reasons I'm doing this recording right now is because I'm like, hey, I need to stay awake. So, you know, but it would be really lovely if I could just set, you know, fire and forget and just say like, okay, I'm going to take a half-hour nap and like beep at me if you need me to wake up again or something, but that it would do that. And it is possible that at least technologically we could be in a condition where we might be able to get to that within 4, 5, 6 months, something like that. As far as how long it's going to take to get regulatory approval, who knows on that end of things, but that would be a pretty remarkable result. And again, every architecture that Tesla has built over the years always has kind of an S. It's like you build a new architecture, you try it out, you're like, oh, I don't know if this one's going to work better. And then all of a sudden you get this really steep slant and you're like, oh yeah, it's working great. But then what always happens is it levels out. There's like a ceiling to it. And there's only so far you can go. And then what has to happen is you have to go back and you have to think about it and re-architect it. And a lot of companies would just keep trying to iterate and squeeze out a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. But there's a lot of effort to get that last few percent advantage. And so, you know, one of the things you got to hand Tesla some credit for is their willingness just to throw out this stuff. And so they're like, well, we've put an immense amount of effort into this, but it's not working as well as we want. And we've begun doing experiments like Skunkworks over here, and we've realized that this is actually working. And rather than just hold on to the other one and keep iteratively making it a little bit better, let's just throw it all into the new thing, put all of our engineering effort into this new version of the software. And then hopefully what you get is you get that steep ramp up section is better than the old one, which means that before it starts to flatten out, it's actually higher up and better than the other one was. And if that's the case, then you can continuously get better and better and better. And the goal is for before they hit the flattening out part, and I believe personally that this is the architecture that'll do it, before it hits that flattening out part, it's going to be significantly better than the average human being. And I think that that actually is a gigantic and profound moment. I wrote and asked, you know, just publicly replied and said, hey, is this the ChatGPT moment? You know, when we see version 12 of the software, is that going to be the ChatGPT moment? Maybe it will be, maybe it won't, I don't know. Part of the problem, of course, ChatGPT, a lot of people can use it. You just throw it out on the web and anybody who wants to use it can use it. With Teslas, it's a little more challenging because, of course, you have to have access to the car. But I feel like we're probably heading towards that moment where we're really going towards the world waking up to this, and it's going to be very profound if and when it works. Anyway, those are my thoughts on this. Again, speculation, except for the fact that Elon said it was mind-blowing. So I'm going to take that as another data point. I'm like connecting the dots. I'm connecting all of these dots together to point to a very profound change in the software that is not only coming, but has already been implemented. If he's driving version, you know, an alpha version of this software, that means that it's not just in some sort of, you know, lab or something. It's actually out in a vehicle, at least one, and it's being test driven and everything. So pretty cool stuff. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. I would be very interested to know what all you think about that. Please be sure to do the whole like and subscribe thing because YouTube depends on that. You know, make sure you follow me on Twitter, and you can be a subscriber on X, sorry, not Twitter. You can be a subscriber on X, you can be a YouTube channel member, you can be a Patreon patron. All of those things would be fantastic. And I am going to keep driving for a lot more hours. I'm not supposed to get in until after like 11 tonight. So anyway, in the meantime, I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.